So this is exactly what we were talking about at the beginning. File your taxes, show them how much you owe, and then the number to call is the taxpayer advocate hotline, and explain this exact situation. But to set this person's mind at ease, you are not going to jail. I'm Scott Hess, tax and business consultant.
I'm John Barton, small business owner. Remember the tortoise and the hare? Slow and steady wins the race.
We started Turtlesmith to help people start small businesses, providing information and resources to small business owners and entrepreneurs.
Build a solid foundation and forge your dreams.
This is always annoying to ask, but if you're liking this content, please like and subscribe. It's the best way for us to get more followers and more people engaged in this great business content. You can also follow us on all socials at Turtlesmith and find us at turtlesmith.com.
Please like and subscribe.
Hey, back for another one.
Yeah,
how's it going, man?
Yeah. Well, it's going pretty good. Okay. Got a lot of work happening at the pool room.
Yeah.
But finally got a food truck in there, so we're feeding people. That's good.
Yeah, still fighting with the licensing on the kitchen. What a disaster.
Yeah, it's not so much fighting with the licensing as now waiting on somebody to come and do the work.
Yeah.
You know, it's
hard to find good contractors. That's really a business that the young people need to take up.
Or another way to say it is, if you do find a good contractor, they're usually pretty busy and you got to wait for them. So
fair enough. Well, this week we're going to talk a little bit about the actual penalties and interest and laws and criminality of owing taxes, which is something that I'm familiar with in my business because we help people out of trouble, and you're familiar with because unfortunately you've had some penalties and interest in your past.
I believe I still have penalties and interest in my present.
We're working on them.
As we're paying them down.
Yeah.
I'm not like Willie Nelson. I can't go on tour and erase it.
Yeah, well. So something to know is that it is not technically illegal to owe money to the IRS. If you owe money to the IRS, they cannot come and just take you to jail simply for owing money. If you intentionally avoid paying taxes or intentionally underpay or report something that is false, then you can go to jail. But just the simple fact of owing the money when you can't pay does not mean you're going to jail.
But they can take everything that they can, right?
They have some very aggressive tactics to come after you. Yeah, absolutely. The IRS has three big things that we usually deal with. The first one is liens, which is what they'll put liens on property that you owe. So if you owe the IRS $100,000, they'll put a $100,000 lien on your house or some kind of asset, which means that if you sell it, $100,000 of the proceeds go directly to the IRS. The second one that they can do is levies, which is the worst. Usually that happens is where the IRS will just reach in and take money right out of your account without even they send you a lot of warning letters, but they don't warn you right before they do it. But they will just seize money out of your account and apply it to the taxes that you owe. And the last one, the most drastic thing that they can do is seizure of actual property. So that's when the IRS agents show up, they kick you out of your property and take everything. Usually it's not that big a surprise to people. There's court proceedings and that kind of stuff beforehand. But we've seen in the movies sometimes where they just come in and take everything and it's a whole mess. So those are their big tactics. And then they also send a lot of threatening and mean letters, unfortunately. A lot of clients get nervous with those.
So it's not illegal to owe, but it is illegal not to pay?
So if you are intentionally avoiding paying the taxes, meaning you have the ability to pay and you're not paying, they can charge you with tax evasion. Or if you specifically underpay or underreport illegally or fraudulently, they can arrest you as well. But we have a lot of clients who come in here who, oil field guys we talked about a little last time. Sometimes people win money gambling or they do something and they spend all their money and they don't have any cash left and they owe a bunch of money to the IRS and they're like, am I going to jail? And the answer is almost always no. You're not going to jail just because you owe money, but you need to do everything in your power to resolve the money that you owe. If you avoid it forever, then they can maybe get you for tax evasion.
So they're usually willing to work with people, though, on some kind of payment plan. Am I right?
The IRS is actually surprisingly nice. If you really are trying to do the right thing, you're not trying to hide everything, you've reported all the correct documents correctly, they will work with you. There's a lot of options. There's offers and compromise, which is just paying them a one-time fee of less money. There's payment plans, and there's even payment plans for less than you owe. And they can sometimes even forgive some of the taxes and the penalties and interest.
I know somebody who, again, this is just what they claimed, right? So, and I'm obviously not going to say anybody's name here, but they say that they owed the IRS something like, 150 grand or something, and they're basically just paying $100 a month until they die.
That's correct. It's not till they die. It's actually for a 10-year period. One of the things that you can do is you file a form. It's called Form 433D. You can look it up. And it shows what is your monthly disposable income. So you go through and show your income, how much all your bills are and expenses and everything. And then at the very bottom, you calculate what is your money left over, basically like a profit on a business, but it's called your monthly disposable income. And that is what you end up paying. And you have to pay that amount for 10 years, regardless of how much it is. And that's what you pay into the government. And then the rest of the debt falls off.
Seriously?
Yep. But they reevaluate that amount every year or 2 or 3 years, depending on how much money you make. So if you start making more money, then you have to pay more.
Right.
It's not a locked-in one.
And I would assume then that if you find a way to make money on the side and don't report it, then that could be considered evasion.
Then no, it's not considered. It is tax evasion.
Okay.
So that is tax evasion. So it's not, like I said, it's not illegal to owe money, but it is illegal to not report every single dollar. So if you file all the proper forms and it shows you 100 grand and you don't have any money, you're not going to jail. But if you report that you didn't make any money and you try to avoid paying them that way, then you're going to jail.
Yeah, no, they've thought of every angle.
Yeah. So the best advice as a tax resolution specialist, kind of in my field, along with the attorney that works in our office, we both recommend that if you have a real tax problem, you need to be working with a tax resolution specialist. You need to be working with a tax attorney, and you have to try to resolve it. Do not stick your head in the sand. Do not try to ignore it, because then you will get in trouble. As I think we'll see from some of these videos, a lot of people have gone to jail.
Let's take a look.
10 celebrities convicted of tax evasion. 10. Wesley Snipes. He didn't file taxes from 1999 to 2001, keeping $7 million from the government. The price? 3 years in prison and later an order to pay $9.5 million? 9. Mike the Situation Sorrentino. The Jersey Shore star failed to pay taxes on $9 million in earnings. He spent 8 months in prison.
That guy made $9 million?
Ja Rule. He failed to file tax returns on $3 million in income, landing him a 28-month prison sentence. At least he got out early in 2013. 7. Daryl Strawberry. He didn't report $500,000 in income, leading to 3 months in prison and 3 months of house arrest. 6. Fat Joe. He owed taxes on $3 million, and despite paying back $718,000, he still got 4 months in prison and a fine. 5. Lauryn Hill. The singer didn't pay $1.8 million in taxes, earning 3 months in prison in 2013. 4. Mark Anthony Twice caught not paying taxes, first $2.5 million in 2007, then $3.4 million in 2010. 3. Chuck Berry. The rock and roll legend served 120 days in federal prison for tax evasion in 1979. His sentence also included 4 years of probation and 1,000 hours of community service. 2. Heidi Fleiss. The former Hollywood madam was sentenced to 37 months in prison for tax evasion and money laundering. She served 20 months before moving to a halfway house. 1. Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage paid $70 million in taxes over his career, yet he still owed the IRS $14 million in 2010.
Wait, what happened to Nicolas Cage?
I don't think he went to jail. I think he just ended up having to pay some.
The only white guy on the list, you know.
It's how it was, yeah.
I don't think any of the white dudes went to jail. Yeah. What happened with that?
Well, so when they say not paying taxes, it's not like they reported it and then just didn't pay the money because they didn't want to. Although I think Wesley Snipes did do that. I think he said, I'm just not paying. He didn't file his taxes for 3 years because he said, I'm not paying them. The not paying taxes means they actually underreported on their return. So they didn't show that income that they were supposed to pay taxes, and that is illegal. Falsely filing a tax return is illegal.
I don't I don't understand how these celebrities do this. Like you see these stories all the time. They get in trouble, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do they not have accountants and people protecting them?
I think they do. I think a lot of them do. Some of them either don't listen to their accountants, or sometimes, as we've talked about before, like Steve Harvey, he had a crooked accountant who was like, look at all the money I save you in taxes. If you pay me $1 million, I'll save you $5 million by reporting it in this certain way. And it ends up biting them in the butt later.
Wow.
So there's a lot of crookedness that goes on. Accountants will steal money or misfile
If I was
things.
Steve Harvey, I'd be tracking that guy down.
Yeah, I think unfortunately he died, but yeah.
Who, the accountant?
Yeah, the accountant.
Yeah?
Yeah. Or
How
just
did he
ran
die?
out. I have no idea. Maybe that's one for Steve Harvey.
Right.
But there is a lot of that goes on. A lot of these people, especially, celebrities or people who make millions of dollars, they do have people taking care of it, but maybe they're not doing it correctly, or maybe they're skimming, or they're trying to hide money. It can be a lot of different
that
ways.
would so suck to go to jail because your accountant or somebody that's supposed to be taking care of you in this situation screws you over.
Yeah, it definitely can happen, which is why we try to teach people here at Turtlesmith, and we've got some courses on it and some thoughts, is how to read your tax return just so you can make sure that all the income is properly reported. That's one of the biggest ones, is making sure that all of the income that you made in a given year is on your return.
So this is something basic that people can do, right? I mean, if you're a movie star, you know how much money you made on your movies and everything, right? I mean,
sometimes, yeah, it can be complicated, but yeah, you just need to make sure that you're going through that with a fine-tooth comb, or that you have somebody you can trust, like me. You don't go through your tax returns, do you?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so just got to make sure you have a good accountant that you can really trust, and sometimes you end up getting screwed, unfortunately.
Well, we're in business together, so
yeah, if you're screwed, I'm screwed.
yeah,
so
we're going to be mutually screwed.
Yeah. So here's a Reddit question. Can't afford what I owe in taxes. Note, I know next to nothing about how tax law works. So I fell on very hard times recently, apparently made an error filing last year. So for the first time in my life, I owe way more on my taxes than I can afford without not paying rent or car payments for like a few months, which is obviously not an option. If I file my taxes and can't pay them, how long till they come to arrest me or something like that? I know they charge late fees and stuff, but I literally cannot pay anything. I can't even hardly afford to pay TurboTax for their service. Like, how serious does it get, and how quickly? When I start making enough money, I will pay, but I can't pay by April 15th. I just don't want to go to jail, and I've never been in a situation like this. How serious is it? So this is exactly what we were talking about at the beginning. File your taxes. Show them how much you owe, and then the number to call is the Taxpayer Advocate Hotline, and explain this exact situation. But to set this person's mind at ease, you are not going to jail.
Yeah, I was going to say, how much is his rent or his car payment? I mean, if it's a couple months worth, and then he'd be good on his taxes, I don't think he owes that much.
Well, a lot is relative depending on who you are and how much you're making, but the key takeaway from this, first and foremost, is you're not going to jail. And then the other question here is, how serious does it get, and how quickly? Well, it does become serious, but it's very slow. Very, very slow with the IRS. The IRS is a snail of a machine that can take 3, 5, 10 years to come after you, but eventually they do.
But when they do, if they take that long, they're going to be charging you interest on all those days.
100%. Yeah, they don't mess around with their money.
That's what I found out, unfortunately.
So there's a couple different types of penalties that you end up paying, and this sounds like personal taxes, so we'll just go over those briefly. The first one is a failure to file penalty. So if you don't file by April 15th or by the extended deadline with an extension, it is 5% of what you owe every month. So if you owe $1,000, you pay $50 penalty every month for 5 months, up to 25%, and then that's the cap on the failure to file penalty. And then there's the same penalty for a failure to pay penalty, 5% a month, and then it's capped at 25%. So eventually you end up with 50% in total penalties if you fail to file and fail to pay.
What if you fail to pay the penalty? Is there a failure to pay a penalty?
Well, so then on the penalties and the regular tax goes, there is also interest, and it's usually kind of fluctuating with the market. It's usually a little bit below prime, but they charge an interest rate based on every single month that you owe, and it just keeps tacking on forever. And those taxes do end up falling away after 10 years from the due date. So if it's April 15th, 2025 that you owed the money will go away April 15th, 2035. But they'll have those 10 years. You'll be getting letters. They'll be garnishing wages. They'll take any refunds that you got. They'll put liens on your property. They'll levy your accounts. It's not great to ignore it.
So, but doesn't it also, does it continue? Well, let me put it different. Is it 10 years if they don't contact you at all about it, or is it 10 years even if they contact you?
Both ways. Yeah. Even if they contact you or they don't contact you.
And if they do contact you, does that make it another like 10 years from the time they contact you, or is it?
No, just from the balance due date. Yeah, it will eventually fall.
So what we're saying is if you can literally get away without paying your taxes for 10 years and without them taking away your stuff, then it falls away.
Yeah, but that's just for that 1 year. So if the next year you don't pay, then it's 10 years from that date, the next year. And so it ends up snowballing.
Basically every single year you'd be looking 10 years behind you.
Right.
Over your shoulder.
Yeah. And so it just is a snowball effect. So you definitely want to try to get it resolved. But again, you are not going to jail for owing money. So the best thing to do is, even if you owe money, is to file your taxes, get them filed, and report everything showing that the IRS what you owe. And if it's more than you can pay, that's okay. Still file, just with no payment.
Right.
And then the best thing you can do is get with a taxpayer or a tax specialist like me, or a tax attorney, or somebody who can help you out of the mess. But if you can't afford that, the next best option is to call the Taxpayer Advocate phone number. Call them. They are an independent agency from the IRS, and they will help you resolve your issue. And one of these, for like this guy, he just has no money. He can't afford anything. This money can actually go into a non-collectible status where it will sit. Sometimes it doesn't even earn interest or penalties, and they will wait until you have money to pay them back. And so the IRS is very forgiving and will work with you as long as you are working with them.
I did, and I don't know if this is still going. It's probably not. But before I came to you, and by the way, everybody should know, we've talked about this many times, but one of the things I did say to you the first time I walked in is, can you keep me out of jail?
It's very common. A lot of people have said that.
Yeah. And I was, I was kind of only half joking there, but it was, it was obviously weighing on my mind quite a bit.
Even if it's a joke, it's still a real legitimate fear.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to go to jail over taxes.
Right. But I had a situation where in previous years, the IRS said, we'd had another accountant do the work, and we probably I'm sure that I gave him the wrong information. So when he filed it, we ended up owing $12,000 more than what he thought. Mm-hmm. So I just made a deal with the IRS to, do $500 a month on that. And then after it was paid off, I just kept it going.
Yeah.
So is that like something people could do? Can they just pay in to the IRS and keep a kind of a positive balance?
Well, you're kind of supposed to do that with estimated tax penalties, estimated tax payments, but you don't have to. And I'm the type of person who I try to pay the least amount at each time, because I don't want to give the government a free loan. At the end of the year, I usually end up owing about $500 because I paid the exact right amount with each estimated tax penalty or estimated tax payment. I keep saying penalty because penalties are on my mind, but each estimated tax payment. And then when I worked like a W-2 job, I didn't have them withhold anything. I had them withhold $0, and then I would make my payment each quarter.
I got it.
Which I don't suggest you do that. I was an accountant, so I knew what was going on, but that's what worked for me. You don't want to give them an interest-free loan.
I thought, for some reason, in my mind, maybe that would give me a little bit of leeway or make them think favorably of me or something like that. I don't know, but
honestly, they don't even know.
Yeah,
you're just a number in their system. Unfortunately, it's just too big. But like I said, the IRS is pretty forgiving if you will work with them and you're honest with them about your situation and you pay what you can. If you can't pay the full amount, just tell them that, work with them, do your best to kind of get everything, getting in what you can, and you'll be fine.
I wanted to mention one more thing about the story here where he says, I can't even hardly afford to pay TurboTax for their services.
Yeah.
Now, if I understand it, TurboTax is normally kind of an online tax prep deal.
They usually, I think, advertise as free, but it's only for the basic 1040 form, and it doesn't include state.
Right. That's what I was going to say is they're supposed to have a free tax form, right?
Yeah.
And if I remember right, reading about this, the IRS was going to do a free tax form, and then they partnered with TurboTax or did something. So TurboTax is providing the free form.
Yeah.
But then, of course, they get you with the extras and everything, or say that form doesn't work for you. So
it's only free if you file a basic W-2 and you're like single, I think. So if you have kids, if you have a small business, you have to file Schedule C. You have to pay money. All these other extra forms, like if you have dividends or investments, I think they charge for. And then they for sure charge for states. They do the federal free, but the state is not free.
This has been a thing of debate. I think that part of the debate is the IRS should have a way to file all these forms electronically, shouldn't they?
Well, you would hope so, yeah. They do have some options, but really the option that they have available is you can print off the forms and handwrite in each form, looking at all of the laws and downloading all of the forms and write on them and send them in, and that's their free way to do it.
Yeah, lovely.
It's not advisable. It's very difficult. No. I don't even do them.
No.
But like the IRS doesn't even accept our quarterly payroll reports electronically. We have so many problems trying to submit those through like QuickBooks and other things. I still print off your quarterly reports. So we sign them and mail them in.
That's crazy. How many trees are we killing over that?
Thousands. And then they have so much mail. It's ridiculous that they get every week, and they lose stuff half the time. So it's a real disaster.
That's crazy. I still remember the story you told me about the what was it? An 18-year-old or something like that had a kid.
We had to convince the IRS that a 21-year-old gal did not have a 13-year-old child.
Yeah.
And it took us about 8 phone calls to finally convince them that, like, okay, she probably didn't have a child when she was 8.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was ridiculous. But like I've said, the IRS will work with you. Now, the people who will not work with you are the state. The state agencies are insane, and I always suggest to pay those ahead of time. Oklahoma State is one of the worst offenders, but I've dealt with Kansas and Missouri, and we've dealt with California and New York, and they are 10 times worse than the IRS. They don't play around.
That is funny because Oklahoma, the governor was just online bragging about how great Oklahoma is for business. And while they may or may not be great for business, apparently they're not so great if you don't pay the tax.
Yeah, so the taxes aren't horrible. Obviously, states are much lower. But if you don't pay the state what you owe them, they don't have a statute of limitation. So like the IRS can audit you after 3 years, 7 years if it's a substantial mistake. And like I said, most balances will fall off after about 10 years. The state will go back until your birth to get you if they want. And they will garnish paychecks. They will come after your employers. They will file court documents. They'll file liens. They are much more aggressive. And the state balances, it is so much harder to make a payment plan. The IRS has a very standard 72-month payment plan. So if you owe $7,200, you end up paying like $100 a month over a 7-year period to get that paid up, or a 6-year period, to get everything paid off. State of Oklahoma, 2 years, and you have to have 30% down to even start it. That's their baseline. And we have to.
What happens if you don't have it?
We have to argue tooth and nail to try to get that done if you have less than that. And oftentimes we won't even get into a payment plan, and we'll just try to pay the balance down as low as possible before it goes to collection agencies. Now, the IRS is their own collection agency. The state of Oklahoma uses Harris & Harris and LGBS, and they charge 40% penalty on top of the penalties that the state has already charged. So you can end up owing almost double or even 150% of what you owe to the state by the time it gets through all the collection agencies.
So what would happen in that situation if somebody's just like destitute and bankrupt?
They will keep that on. They'll keep the interest going forever.
Can they chase you from state to state?
They'll chase you everywhere. Yeah, as far as they can. They'll try to garnish your wages. They'll do everything. The state is worse than the IRS by far.
Wow.
And so when anybody comes in, like for your taxes, when you came in with some problems, we just paid the state. I said, don't even worry about the IRS. We'll do a minimum payment plan to kind of get things going. And we just put everything we could towards the state to get that kicked out of the way.
Wow. Well, I will say this, just at least in my case, right?
Mm-hmm.
We started to have some successful years and do good. And, we started to get out of debt, and it just became a situation where, we were so busy doing our business that I just procrastinated and didn't take care of it, and it is such a weight off my mind.
Yeah.
To be caught up, and even though I'm still paying on it, it allows you just to have some freedom in your mind and some peace.
Mm-hmm.
And it allows us to explore other opportunities,
Yep.
when you have an accountant in your corner and you're able to discuss business and you're able to see where you're at, it really does help. So, I would say to almost anybody, really, even in a situation like this gentleman here appears to be in, where it just seems like he's just working and owes normal wage taxes and stuff or whatever. Find somebody in your life that you can speak with that you can go over your finances with, and kind of have another set of eyes on that. I think it's worth it.
Well, and do it ahead of time.
Yeah.
The first smell of success that you have, get somebody in your corner that knows what they're doing, because then you end up with way too many penalties. Had we been working with you 4 years ago, we would have been able to avoid a ton of crap,
Yeah.
and it's unfortunate that because you're so busy in running your business and making money and trying to keep everything above water, that you just don't have the time or the energy or the thought to get that going ahead of time. And so if you can, it's kind of like preventative maintenance on your house. Fix the problem before there's a problem, and then you're going to be good.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what Turtlesmith is all about.
Right.
It's not just that we've been talking about taxes now for the last 3 or 4 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But it really goes to a lot of other things too.
Yeah.
There are things that are common to all businesses. There's compliance with regulations. There's of course the taxes. There's understanding business principles. Things like that. Like I will often make impulsive business purchases.
Right.
Where
Something
later
you think
on
is going to help, but you're
later
not
on,
100%.
yeah. I mean, I've got machines that are collecting dust because I
Right.
impulsively bought it,
Yeah.
But there are things that sometimes, if you just take a step back and you have another set of eyes, or you have people to advise you, then you can find a better path to achieve what you want to achieve.
Yeah.
And that is really what it comes down to. So it's not just paying attention to your taxes before it becomes a problem. It's paying attention to a lot of things before it becomes a problem. Last week we kind of had Calvin and I had a discussion, which may or may not make it to YouTube. But one of the things that I brought up was a book by Ben Franklin called The Way to Wealth.
Yeah, you've talked
And
about that a few
it's
times.
a small book. It's
Mhm.
only like 27 pages or something. Very easy read, even though it's kind of colonial English. But it basically says the basic premise of the book is that someone is being asked, what about the taxes? Will they ruin the country? Will they ruin us? Right? And the speaker says, well, the taxes can be heavy from the government, and this is kind of quaint. They said, it said in the book, the speaker says, if the government were to tax us, 10% of our time, then it would be quite heavy, right? Wouldn't it be nice if we only got taxed 10% these days?
Yeah.
But there are other things that tax us way more, right?
Mhm.
And it's foolishness, it's laziness, it is not paying attention to detail, not paying attention to your business, like leaks, things like that, where your money's leaking out. And those things the government can't give you an abatement from. They can't free you from those taxes. Only you can free yourself by being diligent and paying attention. And
I'm going to have to reread that book. It's been a while.
yeah, I mean,
It's a good one.
and that really makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
Because I have always thought about it like this. Like, if I am successfully handling my business, then I will be able to pay the tax, whatever it is. Because it's really not to any government's advantage to tax people out of business.
Yeah, and really taxes should not put you in the poorhouse. I mean, obviously it does
Right.
hurt sometimes, but even repayment plans and those kind of things, if you're behind in taxes, should not make you go broke.
Right. And so I think that if people stopped worrying so much about how much the taxes are and just worried about making sure that they were getting their business done correctly, they would be able to pay the taxes. And even though, yeah, it would hurt to write that check, what they keep and what they really are able to use as resources will end up being a lot more than they think.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Well, my kind of final takeaway from this episode is something I said to you when we first met, and what I said to a lot of people is, you are really not going to go to jail if you owe money. Just the key to penalties and interest and late taxes is to make sure that you are actively trying to resolve the situation. Even if you have no money, be in contact with the IRS, make sure you're talking with somebody at the taxpayer advocate, or you have a tax attorney working on it, so that there's at least some communication going on. And somebody knows at the IRS that you're actively trying to fix it, even if you can't at that moment. And that will keep you out of jail. It will keep you from going to jail for tax evasion. And make sure to file everything, regardless of if you can pay it. File your taxes on time and make sure that they have everything correctly reported, and you'll be fine.
There you go.
And don't fuck around with the states.
Yeah.
Just pay those bastards off.
Yeah. The states are the states are the ones that are really gangster on this.
They really are. They really are. Well, that's my final thoughts for this week. Any final thoughts on taxes or penalties or people going to jail?
I would say that I'm not going to go there.
See, I set you up for it, though.
I'm not going to go there.
All right.
I know you were trying to bait me into it. I'm not going to go there. But it looks like that at least one celebrity that we know is going to slip out of accountability.
Yeah,
but
slip.
not for
That's
taxes.
a good word. There you go. All right. Well, as always, you can find us at turtlesmith.com and at turtlesmith.ok at all of our socials. We'll see you next week.
All right.
This is always annoying to ask, but if you're liking this content, please like and subscribe. It's the best way for us to get more followers and more people engaged in this great business content. You can also follow us on all socials at TurtlesmithOK and find us at turtlesmith.com.